Online.
I'm going to call this meeting of the Arundel Planning Board to order. Today is March 26, 2015, at 7:08 p.m. On the agenda, we have the approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes from March 12, 2015. We have pending applications. Item number 1, AIM Recycling. Item number 2, Champion Auto Body. We have proposed ordinance changes. Item number 1, review of the proposed sign performance standards. Item number 2, discussion of digital signage in business districts. And we'll have the planners report, and we'll go home.
At what time?
Hopefully when we get done.
No, I didn't know if we had a cutoff time.
We do, yeah. That's your
9 o'clock?
9 o'clock in this space.
Well, just,
Okay,
Much better if we did a roll call.
we need to add one item to the agenda, and that is the approval of minutes from March 19th.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to also add an item to the agenda regarding whether an official action is necessary from the planning board for the essentially vacating of the subdivision, undeveloped subdivision.
Okay.
You
Item
guys
3
have to
under
act, but I wanted to discuss it.
ordinance.
Yes, item 3 under ordinance changes.
That's ungoing.
And what are we calling that item?
Discussion on
So vacating.
vacating subdivision.
And what was the other one that you?
The minutes from March 19th have been made available.
I'd like to make motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Should have a roll call first, no?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, let's have a roll call.
Marty Kane.
Jamie Lowry.
Tom McGinn.
John Durkinderen.
Roger Moore.
Rich Ganong.
Bob Coon.
Marie Bertie.
Tad Redway?
And
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So we'll start with the approval of the minutes of March 12th.
I'm fairly confident I was not at that meeting. My weeks are running together. So I will caveat that with I'm fairly confident.
Fairly.
But
You know,
I think it might have been.
I can't remember if I was actually there or not. I'm saying, but my name is
that mine
included
is too.
as a motion, is motioning, so maybe I was there.
I think you might have been, because March, you've been good.
I have been. We've been trying really hard.
I think age is taking its toll.
Yeah, and it says, James, you motioned to.
You seconded it
Adjourn.
That was a couple of Thursdays ago. And
2 weeks ago.
So, yeah, we were here.
You
You weren't.
motioned.
right, I didn't think I was.
No, he
Yeah,
wasn't
you
here.
were.
No, I wasn't.
2 weeks,
No.
2 weeks ago on March 12th.
We were here, right?
According to this,
Well,
Jamie,
that's what he's saying.
what he
you
said.
said,
That's on my whole point, Rich. Is I am.
Yeah.
I'll change that to I am very certain I was not here.
March,
Since I'm getting some collaboration from the
we were
witnesses.
here.
If it was the very first night we were here,
Yeah.
he was not here.
Right.
I was.
And that was March 12th.
But I was here.
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, then,
You look familiar.
then,
Good thing you guys are here.
we're gonna have to,
So don't,
we're gonna
don't
have to table these.
table them, yeah. So that-
There's also some reference to me last week too, Marie.
I'm sorry?
There's reference to me being last week, so yeah.
You were here in
So you weren't
spirit.
here last week?
Thank you.
He wasn't there.
We felt.
No, he wasn't.
No, I was.
He was not here.
I had another
He's not on
commitment.
this one.
Yeah, he is.
No, I know
I'm referenced in it.
What do you like to do with that, Jamie?
So let's just table
Perfect spot
them.
we're
right
gonna-
there.
We're gonna have to table both sets of minutes
Trash it.
so that they can be corrected.
I would table them.
Okay.
Sorry, Marie.
No, that's okay.
Well, that
Okay.
makes that short and sweet.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda, AIM Recycling. Major conditional use application. Proposed application to renew expired permit to continue operation on an existing 43,000 square foot solid waste recycling facility on a 22.9 acre site located at 2244 Portland Road, tax map 12, lot 9 in the BI district. AIM Recycling USA is the owner applicant, and Chip Haskell of CAS is the applicant's agent. We've gotten a couple of different items from Woodard and Curran, and we have a response from CES to the first one, and then a second letter.
Which is a response to the response.
A response to the response.
Right.
Does anybody have,
I'm wondering if the applicant would like to address anything, or do you want to do the board?
I'd like to hear what, well, I was wondering if the board had any questions for the applicant concerning.
Yeah, I have a number of them on the latest Woodard current response. But it might be more efficient if we allow the applicant to address issues, and then if there's any left, then we can work on that.
That will work. Mr. Haskell.
Chip Haskell, CES. I guess before we start, get too far into it, regardless of what the agenda states that we're here for, I guess my understanding is we're here to determine whether or not the package is complete, so that we can schedule a public hearing and a subsequent vote for final approval. It's not an expired permit, I just want to get that on record at this point. Beyond that,
It is a new
It's a
permit.
new permit.
It still says expired on the agenda.
It does say
Right.
expired on the agenda.
yeah, it's the old description
Yeah.
from a couple of years ago.
That's completely wrong. I apologize for that.
Right, but our primary determination is on the completeness
Is on the completion of the
the submission.
That's my understanding as well. Beyond that, I literally got this letter about an hour and a half ago on the road from Woodard and Curran. So I've briefly read through it. It appears to be minor modifications to our site plan and our some of our notes on the plan, as well as just a few checks on some calculations. So very, very minor things as far as I'm concerned, just things that you want us to make sure of that we're still addressed. I feel like we've addressed, as far as completeness goes, we feel like we've addressed everything required by the ordinance in our package. We've also gone ahead and, as you know, issued a response to the comments from the town's engineer, as well as some additional responses to comments from the planning board from prior meetings. But I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you may have on any of these letters. In specifics.
I would like to address item number 8 on the latest Woodard and Curran communication,
Sure.
which is groundwater. And that comment seems to suggest that there is something that the planning board has not considered as far as the ordinance is concerned. And I'd just like a little bit of discussion, maybe among the planning board members and among the applicant, to make sure that we're not missing something there. It seems like our ordinance requires something, and I don't recall whether we actually gave a waiver. Did we actually do that? I don't remember. Chad, did we actually do a
No.
waiver on that? Do you remember if we did?
My understanding was that granted the waiver conditional upon the cut sheet of the fabric that was going underneath the build-out.
We did a conditional waiver.
That was my understanding.
We'll have to get those notes.
Yeah, that's the only thing that concerns me in terms of completeness. I don't want to miss any items. Everything else, as the applicant stated, seems like they're just details that have to be worked out, but is not an indication of incompleteness. So that's the only one I'm wondering about.
It seems unclear to me exactly what he's talking about.
It is to me too, which is why I'm questioning.
Yeah, I guess I think the hang up is we proposed an alternative, where we believe that that no impact to groundwater will be occurring as a result of this development. And it's the planning board's authorization or requirement to waive the groundwater study requirement in lieu of that proposal.
And from that discussion, I recall getting the impression, at least, and maybe it was an erroneous impression, that that fabric, that geotex fabric, was impervious,
Yeah, that's
which is apparently not so.
No, and in the application, it's definitely not a totally impervious, fabric. It's a relatively impervious fabric. If you actually see it on the roadway, during a construction job, and it's been raining, water's ponded right on top of it. It does seep through at a very low rate. But, the other thing we need to consider is that the fluids from these vehicles will be drained before these are placed on the yard in the first place. So the source of contamination to begin with is removed. There's no source of contamination.
There will be some, you won't remove every
They're
last
very
drop,
efficient
but-
with the removal of those fluids.
but they will minimize at least.
It's certainly in their best interest to get every last drop of that out if they can. They have very sophisticated
Right.
equipment to do that now, but it's certainly the intent to get all that out. Again, with the recycled asphalt material that's compacted on there, that's modeled as an impervious surface to begin with. The actual
Right.
surface material, very hard, very durable. So we have to actually model it to treat it as if it's going to the stormwater pond itself.
Tad, if I recall, we do consider that type of surface to be impervious, right, the reclaimed asphalt?
Well, from a curve number, yeah. From a stormwater hydrocad standpoint, it's got a curve number that's considered to be impervious. However, there is always seepage, there's always going to be.
I mean, even compacted gravel,
Even
Right.
compacted gravel
we would
has some.
consider it, we would look at, from a stormwater perspective, the same way.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that there wouldn't be a valid discussion on any seepage that would come through to the groundwater.
Right, well, you're gonna have minimal discharge, you have an impervious surface as far as a compacted gravel or reclaim, and then you have the geotex underneath, which is also very slightly pervious, if not impervious. So personally, I feel it's pretty good protection, but I don't know.
Well, it goes to the water moving to the pond, right?
Right.
Everything on the surface.
And then the pond has to treat the total.
Right, and also, thinking in terms of a possible aquifer, but there is no aquifer
There is
as needed, so
Exactly.
I think we're okay on
Ask a question. Jim, the wet pond's intent is to infiltrate stormwater runoff from basically the pad that we're talking about and infiltrate it into the existing groundwater system, correct?
Not entirely.
Is the main infiltration going to be through there? It's not going to be by evaporation?
I'd be careful with the term infiltration.
Okay.
This pond will be lined so that it avoids any sort of conflict with either ledge or groundwater.
Okay.
So that being said, what happens is you have a permanent pool in that pond, and that water from the pad will flow into that pond, and the fine material in that water will settle out in that permanent pool, volume area. Once you get a storm event and it fills up, it'll filter through what we call a gravel trench, and that gravel trench goes to the outlet structure. And the intent of that gravel trench is to cool that water so that it doesn't provide any sort of impacts to downstream, water body characteristics. So it goes
Can
to
you
the
tell
gravel
us
trench.
what the nature of the lining is of the wet pond?
That's an impervious liner.
Okay.
Now, I will say,
I saw I saw the cut sheet.
Yeah.
But could you please explain to us what the nature of that liner really is? Is
now that liner,
rubberized material? Is that a plastic material?
it's an HDPE material. It's not the cut sheet that you've been provided for the geotextile fabric underneath the pad.
Right.
That's a separate. It's similar to what they use in like a landfill, where it's an impervious HDPE liner. It's quite thick.
Okay.
That'll be used if there's a lot of times if there's groundwater in the area, you have to have that separation there. If we get down there and determine that there's no groundwater, typically we show that there's a liner in plan, not knowing if there's groundwater in the vicinity or ledge in the vicinity. because you need to have that impermeable barrier, if there is that in the vicinity. You know, if you've got clay or something like that, you can a lot of times use that clay material to do it, but in this case, we propose to use the HDB liner.
But there is ledge.
There is ledge, so that's why the liner is in place.
Okay, well, I'm satisfied with number 8.
Is there a clay base put down first and then the liner? So turn out with the ledge or anything else? I'm thinking of turning out of a, and this may sound the wrong terminology, a chafe base.
Yep.
I mean, that's why I turn out clay being
Sure.
a blockage.
Yep.
And then turn out in case, so it's lined, so the liner is sitting on,
Sure.
instead of a ledge or anything else for chafing,
Yeah.
it would be acting as a cushion in itself.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be clay material or the material that we've excavated out from the site. Most likely a common borrow that would provide a little bit of separation there, just like you say, so there's no chafing between the liner and the ledge itself.
That's,
In item number 6, the Woodard and Curran noted that you guys had updated the HydroCAD model to reset the exfiltration rate
Yes.
of that bench. They go on to say it should verify sufficient depth between peak elevation and top of the embankment.
Right.
Can you address that in your comments?
In response to this,
Yep.
I absolutely
I know
will.
you can't, I mean.
Yeah, you know, regardless, I can tell you, and the rest of the board, I don't know if I have a detail on this, I have one underneath, but, yeah, either way, all that's saying is to make sure that there's enough freeboard between what we expect the water elevation in that pond to be and what the top of the bank of the pond is. So, you know, if we find that we need a little bit more freeboard, we'll increase the height of that berm to make that happen. Either that or increase the outlet size on the outlet itself. So, yeah, we'll certainly address that in our responses to this.
how do you determine that? Because nobody has a crystal ball of what actually, what we might receive for water flow or anything else. I mean, over a period of different years.
Correct.
So I mean,
Yep, the best tool we have for that is called HydroCAD. And it's a hydrology modeling software that models the expected rainfall for any given area. And what that'll tell us when we show the pond in there as well. And you'll see this detail right here is essentially the spillway out of the pond. And what we showed originally, this is the elevation of that water in that spillway, assuming that the primary outlet fails. And that is given to us by the HydroCAD model itself, once we plug in all the information that's needed to run that model. So what we need to do is make sure that, based on the new infiltration rate in that gravel trench, that this level hasn't risen high enough to exceed the required freeboard.
Wasn't Kieran's comment that the elevation wasn't shown between the emergency spillway and the pond, making sure that the top part of the spillway was high enough in case of the first third?
My interpretation of theirs was to make sure that the difference between the top of the berm, top of the actual berm of the pond, and this elevation here wouldn't be.
I took it in relationship to the failure in filling it up.
Yeah.
I would remind the board that we're looking for completeness here, we're not judging the actual application.
Yeah. So this needed to be looked at after we did the integration rate. He wanted to make sure that was. So I need to go back and make sure that was addressed and modify that on the plan if it needs to be. So.
I move that we judge this submission.
Does anybody else have any questions? Now, we want to give everybody a chance to ask questions. And hearing none, you can make your motion.
It's already been made.
Okay, then we need a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded to deem the application complete. Is there any discussion? Hearing none?
question, what waivers are we granting, if any?
This isn't,
We haven't gotten to that.
Okay, that's why I was saying completed.
We have granted some.
This is, this is just to determine that the application itself is complete. Included in that later on, we will discuss the waivers.
That's why,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think that's how it works. You have to determine if you're going to, say he's got a waiver, to say it's complete means that basically you're saying, you're already granting the waivers. Because you're saying he needs to provide no more submissions, at this particular time in order to be, for you to make a decision. And you can, we could discuss freeboard and things like that, but, what you're, to grant him waivers later, is kind of shutting the barn door after the horse is there. So, if you're gonna grant waivers, do them before you deem it complete, not after. Because then, by granting waivers, it means it wasn't complete in the first place.
that's why he's asking the questions.
And it's my understanding that the waivers that were applied for were granted with the exception of the groundwater. And I have those, a list of waivers.
So, in other words, you gotta make a decision about the groundwater.
Yes.
Well, I was gonna say, because the other waivers have already been granted.
So, the point is that they have asked for groundwater, you haven't given a complete groundwater waiver at this time. There were no other ones, were there?
No, we granted.
That was the only outstanding one.
So that was the only thing. So, you gotta make a decision on the groundwater.
That's a good point. So, we have
So
an option.
based on their application, I'm reading that they requested as waivers, high-intensity soil survey, traffic impact study, groundwater study, market study, physical impact assessment, and DEP approval.
Right, and we granted all of them except the groundwater, and we said that the DEP approval was contingent upon, if they submitted the application, we would proceed forward. So we do have the issue of the groundwater control. That being said, we can either defeat the motion, or it can be withdrawn. Because we do have to address the groundwater issue.
I'll withdraw the motion and give the board a chance to address groundwater.
Okay.
So you have to withdraw your second.
I would vote. We've had the peer, first we had the submission, they submitted the documentation required. We had a peer review that identified some other items. They've just gotten that and have kind of explained to the board where they believe it is, so the information might change there a little bit.
The information for groundwater shouldn't change.
Right, I mean, based on,
Some of the calculations in the pond and stuff.
That was more surface water, things like that.
right,
Question really boils down to,
Yeah.
you know, given the use, given the mitigation measures provided, given the use, given the, we know that groundwater is relatively close to the surface, is a groundwater study warranted under these circumstances? That's the question you have to ask.
My personal feeling is it is warranted, just due to the use. It's, probably in this town, I don't know if there's any more potential hazards and toxic, drainage than we have at that site, acres of vehicles. Although you do a job, it could, be something getting into the groundwater. I'd rather see it there. I'd hate to give approval on something and find out that, something slipped through the cracks.
Ted, can I ask what a groundwater study would entail? Because I haven't seen anything real written in stone or anything in the ordinance on it.
There isn't anything. I think it would be, hazard oriented. In other words, you know, what is the potential for material, from trace materials from this project getting into the groundwater, and accumulating or moving or potential for contamination of groundwater, given the mitigation strategies you've got right now? That's the question.
If I recall, you do have monitoring wells.
I think there may be monitoring wells required by the solid waste. Do they have them out there already? They do.
Yes.
We do on all 5 of our
So they're
yards
up, yeah.
already.
So they'll be doing monitoring, you know,
We already do it at all these sites.
Question. Part of the groundwater or anything else, did that concern, and I know we had discussed this, about the abutter and his wishes or your wishes in between,
Do you want me to address that?
if you, I mean, it's considered groundwater, that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I think of it that way too, and I understood your question. What we did, my company asked us to find out what are the risks.
Yeah.
And we sent a letter, I think that you all have been provided. The assessment of that risk is negligible, to say the least.
you have a
And,
copy of that?
and what we're saying is,
You got it.
I mean,
Somebody else have it?
as part of the blasting plan,
Yeah,
that will be looked at. So, what more do you? I don't know that there's any more that we can guarantee you. If we affect that guy's water, we have to fix it,
yeah,
and we know that.
yeah.
I mean,
Essentially,
legally, we're required, and we,
and essentially the risk, you know, that letter spells right out that, you know, our development is 15 feet higher than this guy's well. There's no way no physical way that groundwater contamination, his groundwater is not coming from there. His groundwater is coming from, you know, well below our development. There's no physical means for contamination of that well at that distance where we're higher than that well, so, from the blasting. So we're not gonna affect his quality by blasting it 15 feet higher than his well.
what the study was saying is if we were blasting down to the same level of the rock that his well is in, then we could possibly affect it. But really, we're so far off that the fracturing is gonna occur long before we get to where his water's coming from. And the guy, he couldn't say never, but he's saying almost never. And if we affect that guy's water, we gotta fix it.
Yeah.
We know that. And the study says it's almost impossible for us to do.
I'm just,
And we are gonna look at it.
Yeah.
It will be checked before and after. As part of the blasting plan, we will check that. If he's willing, we'll test it before and we'll test it after.
Ted, in your opinion, Kern, in their review, simply asked that we ask for, that the town should seek some clarification, specifically on the geofabric, we've done all of that. So is it your point that we would need to move that as a separate motion, not to have to do the ground study?
We'd have to have a
They
motion
ask
to
for that
waive.
waiver, you have to rule on the
Okay.
waiver. That's
clarify.
And that's why I brought up the point that you shouldn't do it before you deem it complete, because
Yep.
quite frankly, after you deem it complete, it doesn't matter what you ask for, because you deem it
Wow.
complete. So I
Well,
want this
well,
study
for
done,
safety.
all these gentlemen now, so we can.
And I think we're looking at two separate issues here too, just to try to avoid any confusion. We're looking at there was a confusion whether or not any blasting would affect one abutter's well, which is a totally separate issue than the groundwater study issue that we're discussing as well, so.
I just think that is groundwater, I mean,
I understand, it's a separate, yeah.
but it's all in together.
It is, yeah.
So, I have a question from Woodward and Curran. I'm not finding where they felt that the documents provided showed that groundwater would be safe. And I'm not sure exactly what this engineer would be looking for to confirm that it's safe enough. There's some doubts there.
so,
Yeah.
just as reading, and whether the waiver for groundwater is appropriate for this applicant. It says, that's from Woodman on the last sentence.
Could you read
Yeah,
that?
so they're questioning whether or not we should waiver it. That's what they're questioning.
No, I thought the way I read it, it is appropriate.
No, it's not.
Could you read that sentence?
And it
They're
says,
just
and
saying
whether
we
a
should
waiver
seek additional information from the
is
applicant.
appropriate.
All they say.
See,
My understanding was, he said that, you know, we proposed something, and if that is sufficient for what the town is requiring, and they're comfortable with what we proposed, then, you know, then they would need to look at granting the waiver. If they are not, then
So,
I mean, my inference of their comments that CES replied to on March 23rd, my take on Woodard and Curran's comments is that they're not 100% satisfied or fulfilled that the proposal would protect groundwater.
Right. Yeah, it's I'm getting at too.
and I also would ask, if we're gonna grant a waiver for this type of use, why would we require for any other type of use?
Well, it's not that we're granting it without any kind of mitigation. They have demonstrated that they have an impervious surface, they have the geotext, that it's not over an aquifer and all of that, so it's
That's
not that
all
we're
part-
just blindly giving them a
Yeah, and
waiver.
that's all part of the groundwater study, is that aquifer determination.
That would be.
Is the aquifer determination, the overflow discharge outlets, emergency overflow, all of that he's addressed. The geotext to me came up as kind of a side issue in that kind of presented as improved when it's not 100%, but the ground on top of it kind of is. So I don't know, I guess if we're gonna ask for a groundwater study, then we gotta ask them specifically to give us something. And I don't know what else to ask.
well, that's I guess what I'm wondering. I mean, I feel like we've provided a lot of information, you know,
don't know
stating
what
that this,
What would the study be?
well, that's what kind of stuff.
That's what, I'm looking towards the town engineer to give us some guidance on that, and since they're casting doubt on it, I don't feel comfortable, I have doubt on it. But that, I think that's where I'm coming from.
So we're gonna rely on their
Right.
expertise.
Yeah, because I look back at the letter dated March 19th on the groundwater, and it says that the applicant's narrative and specifically page 4 include the use of phrases including "do not foresee any significant source" when referring to potential groundwater, relatively impervious with respect to describing proposed surfaces, and not entirely impervious when referring to proposed woven geotextile to be placed onto the roadway. It is worth noting in particular that the proposed geotextile is not impervious and is typically specified for separation and stabilization of subgrades where moderate loads are expected, not to reduce the potential for contamination transport.
Well, that's not what it's for.
It isn't what it's,
Right.
and it's
It's
there for
because of the
that.
hard loads that they're carrying on the big truck.
But
But they then go on.
they have touted that fabric as part of their groundwater impact mitigation process. And
Which it
And Woodard and
actually
Curran
is.
is-
It actually is, yeah.
It is.
I believe it is to a certain extent.
Right.
You know, it certainly
A little
isn't
bit.
a one size fits all solution,
Right.
but it's there and it does something. You know, it plus the fact that we do have monitoring wells already in place that will be continually monitored. You know, I'm not sure what additional measures could be taken.
that's why I asked about the clay, because that is more or less impervious per se, also as a cushion.
You say we have a little clay around it, might be useful.
Depends on what side of the town you're
And
on.
impervious underneath another impervious.
Well, they
That
can run
comes
in, they can run into
plastic.
clay right up there.
It's really, it's
I
my
did say
opinion
that.
that the surface that we're working on is doubly semi-impervious, if you will. I mean, we consider the compacted gravel or reclaimed to be impervious. We know it's got a little bit of seepage. And then underneath that, they've got the geotex, which is not really impervious, got a little bit of seepage. So we've got, like, maybe you're cutting out 99% on the top, and then you're cutting out another 99% of the 99% underneath. You might get a little drop or two,
And don't
but
forget
even
the 24
there,
inches
there's no aquifer underneath that is threatened. So I'm pretty comfortable with it. I don't see where we should ask the applicant to do a costly study just to see if maybe there's a problem. Maybe.
Well, I think part of the other problem is that while I might say having a groundwater study is good, what are we studying?
Yeah.
What specifically are we looking for?
You're
I can't
looking
define
for
that
a
answer.
problem.
And
I can't define what the problem would be.
Well, there's all of those things.
Seems
that
like
they
by default,
present.
we've already essentially done a groundwater study. I'm kind of,
Okay, you making that a motion to waive?
You haven't done groundwater.
well, no, but
No, you haven't.
address.
Come on.
If the board is
I'm not
ready
saying full-
to,
What
is
are
ready
the
for a
other things
motion,
they
I'm
could
happy
give
to
us?
do
I
that.
think the only thing, I think what Warren Curran is saying is they're looking, and this is my interpretation, because it is vague, and I think it's purposely vague. I think the one thing that they are asking the question is, given the use, and I'm reading this more carefully now, because I just did a quick cursory look like everybody else. Given the use and the type of materials that were there, they're just saying, would a groundwater study it might be appropriate to have it. And the question is, okay, what are you studying? And the question would be, what are you capturing in that granular material? What's gonna be there over time? Because we're talking about time frame, we're not talking about immediate thing, we're talking about material that seeps in over time, which we all know about. Will that get through? Will that get into the groundwater? Where's the groundwater? The groundwater, there's no aquifer. So we have a bedrock aquifer, and if anything, we have water table, we have water at the surface, actually. So, actually, I'm not worried about groundwater as much as I am superficial water.
Which is triggered anyway.
But in there,
It's treated by precipitate, but, right? I mean, we're talking about precipitation of solids into this.
Sure, and which
Pond,
also
right?
filters out through the gravel bench before it goes out of the, so.
Okay.
And the sediment,
Does that work with, that works with suspended solids, but what about something that's soluble?
As far as oils and things like that you're talking?
Oils,
BTV or whatever.
I
it
mean,
is.
you're getting a certain level of detention, it's certainly not meant for oil removal.
which you know we'll have, I mean, we're gonna always have residual, we'll always have that residual.
Trace amounts, I mean, we're
We're
talking.
talking over time,
But we've also got it from the road that's right there.
but we're not disassembling cars in the.
and the asphalt that you're putting down, it'll probably give you
What's that
more than
asphalt?
anything else.
See, I'm looking at it differently, than, I'm not looking at aquifer, I'm thinking about
Yeah,
what's gonna be, that's a sink, that's a nutrient sink that you're creating, basically, am I wrong on that?
as far as the
Not
pond
a
itself.
nutrient, but it's a chemical sink, yeah, the material that you're putting in. Because you've got some material, some of it's gonna sink in, most of it's gonna run off to the wet. Correct.
As far as surface water, yes.
Surface water is, and then some will pond because it's not an impervious surface. The surface will change, you know, as things are gouged and so forth, so you'll have some ponding, and there'll be some infiltration, how much? You can model any number you can, but I think the issue that they're bringing up is, will there be a long-term impact, I think is really the issue. It's not an immediate impact, but you can have a long-term impact. And my question to you would be more on the wet pond. I'm a little more concerned about that wet pond operation, especially with just the gravel filter. How do we deal with soluble materials? How will that take it out?
It doesn't.
There's,
Yeah.
It doesn't. Gentlemen, I think the question is, do we deem the application complete, or do we ask for a groundwater study?
Well,
So
then we have
I
to
need, we need a
not
motion.
ask
one
for a
way or the other.
groundwater
Oh, we'll
study,
tell
but
them we
have
want
to
one.
give them a waiver or not. If
Right.
it's-
Do
If we
we-
don't grant a waiver, then it's not complete.
What's your opinion, Jamie?
I'm torn on this because from the technical side of things, I think what they have proposed will do a decent job. I'm not a professional geologist, So, and I do understand where it is hard for them to take this type of situation where their plan is to remove, 99.5% of everything that they're looking to be a chemical of concern or a contaminant. But from a, I guess, the planning board perspective, we're a group of non-professionals. And we rely on our professional guidance from the people that we hire. And I think if they're suggesting that a groundwater study of some form is warranted, I think it's definitely worth us having that conversation, so.
But I don't feel that they're suggesting that. I just feel that they're recommending that the board consider that, but I don't think they're suggesting it per se. I don't get that feeling. The feeling I get from that statement is you want to look at this just to make sure you haven't overlooked it.
But the other point is also too, there's never 100%, because nobody has a crystal ball. I can turn around and say, you're at 99.9. I mean, how close can you get to, but nobody can see for something in the future.
And the other issue that I will struggle with, if we request them to do a study and they come back and say it's gonna capture 95% of the contaminant, the setup that they have. We don't have a standard that would say is 95% adequate for the town of Arundel. And two people could think it's okay, two people could think we want 99, and the rest would be fine with 80. That's the issue. If we request a study out of them, how are we gonna assess that study? Because, I mean, admittedly, you guys are gonna hire somebody or use somebody from CDS to perform the study. I would be thoroughly shocked if we got a piece of paper in here that said what they have proposed is inadequate. I mean,
Good point.
And the other thing is that with their monitoring systems that
Yeah,
they
right.
have in place now, that has always been given to the town for review.
The
we'll say.
monitoring results you're talking about.
Yes.
Right.
And
Baseline.
so, I mean,
Well, that's actually given the state, you give that to DEP, right?
That
I
makes
think
sense.
it's given to the, if I remember correctly, it was supposed to also be given to the town, and then probably to the state. But we turn out, I'm just going back from when
well,
we first started.
This
Oh,
is a
and we
conditional.
can have all those reports sent to.
Just fill up your cabinet some more.
And no place for it. That's the.
All right, well,
So I guess to your point, Roger, I would be inclined to move forward without having them do a study and let us put some conditions in place that would give us that monitoring information, as we get to that point, and be able to assess what's going on. This is conditional use, so we will have to reapprove this through periods of time.
Okay.
Well, yes, every 3 years.
If you find through our monitoring that it's not sufficient, but again, you
Right.
go back to, what does your ordinance say is the threshold? I don't know what you're looking for, essentially, is what I'm asking. I don't know what the ordinance is asking.
At the very least, the groundwater monitoring, we have a good baseline, through the history that they've been monitoring these. So, if it does show any increase, we can put in place some sort of additional measures to.
Well, I mean, would we be having this conversation if it was paved from the start?
Probably not.
but it's as good as paved. So.
Probably wouldn't be. I'd have a problem, I'd still be having the conversation about the gravel filter with chip on that.
Well, but that's a little bit of a different argument. That's a different, yeah.
That's a sufficient water
Right.
issue, actually.
To move this along, I'm assuming that a motion to grant the waiver would be appropriate at this time.
Yes, I was about to make that motion.
So
If
make a
there's no other
motion, we
discussion.
grant the waiver on the groundwater study.
So you're making the motion, I'll second it.
The motion has been made and seconded to grant the waiver for the groundwater study. Is there any further discussion among the board? Okay, all those in favor, granting the motion? Anybody opposed?
Only because I wish I could get an answer from Woodward and Curran, but I'm comfortable with this.
Okay,
Like to make a motion that we deem the, application complete.
Second.
motion has been made and seconded
I
to
think
deem the
Marty
application
seconded before I
complete.
go ahead.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous.
Okay.
Now we're gonna set a date for a public hearing. Can we do a public hearing at the?
April 9th, we can't do it next week.
No, I'm not talking, I'm not looking at next week. No, I was just wondering what the next date was.
2 weeks.
2 weeks is April 9th.
We can't do it.
We can't do it on April 2nd.
Don't have enough time
No,
to
we don't
know.
have that, right, we need 10 days.
Yes, we do it tonight.
Ted's got to come to.
We can do it on the 16th, but I'm gonna have to wake
Can
up
we
to
wait
come
to
to the
do
meeting.
that until Tad decides what his calendar looks like and we can move
Well,
on?
it's not my calendar, it's notification to when the paper can publish it. You know, I've gotta have, we've gotta be able to publish it by Wednesday, so I've gotta get it in the fall.
Does it impact the applicant at all if we delay this? Does it impact you if we
Probably
delay it
better
for
ask
4
that.
weeks instead of 2?
I could probably get it right.
We're hoping to get this done, to be honest.
If you can get it in, Tad, that's great.
If,
We appreciate it.
if it doesn't happen and we're here 4 weeks from now, to be quite honest, we're still waiting on state approval.
That's what I was gonna ask, are you, I mean,
We haven't heard, but we're expecting to. It could be next week, it could be 4 weeks. We really don't know with DEP, so.
So I don't know how to answer your question.
They told us, actually, they told us about 2.5 months back in, when I was meeting, which was January.
He's not response to the groundwater.
We were kind of expecting by mid-April
Well,
that
I-
we'd
you
hear
have a
something.
DEP?
And they should answer the same questions that you just want.
What's it gonna be, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I'll see if I can do it tonight.
April 9th.
Let's shoot for that.
April 9th at 6:30,
So,
or should we say, no, we have to, well,
it's not a
Seven.
sidewalk.
Well,
We
yeah,
don't have a
okay.
sidewalk,
We can have it as part of the
yeah,
regular.
we can have it as part of the regular meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
because
So-
we've been at sidewalks already.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Next item, Champion Auto Body, major conditional use permit. Proposal to construct a 4,000 square foot addition to an existing auto repair facility with proposed site regrading, parking area reconfiguration, and box trailer storage relocation on a 2.17 acre site located at 1617 Portland Road, tax map 29, lot 20P, in the CCS district. Mario Burnett is the owner applicant, and Paul Gadbois is the owner's agent. And I think this is to determine that it's complete as well, isn't it?
You have to, first, Mr. Chairman, if you, you had a site walk, and, what you need to do is, you discuss the things that you found on the site. Because there were several issues you wanted to look at when you were out there, and they needed to be settled. If I'm not mistaken, we dealt with the issue of the bays, the parking, and buffering on the north side of the road.
Okay, for those of you that made it to the sidewalk, and I was not one of them.
We'll raise our hand when we're there.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick thing from the board if you want.
Yeah.
We believe that the applicant may have overstated the number of bays for the intended use in that new building. Thought maybe they should re-look at that. The parking out front, as was going to be proposed, seemed to really be over 70% of the total projected number based on the higher number of bays. The screening along the southern side we looked at where the there's a right-of-way and felt that there was no actions needed by the applicant. What was there was sufficient. On the northern side, the buffering between the buildings existed to the back edge of the buildings, and I don't remember any of the board having any real concern about that. In the front and along 111, there were several, Route 1. Yeah, 111, I mean that. There were several display kind of areas with vehicles and shrubs and an elevated thing for sales model, some rock formation, and the board journey felt that that was adequate as well. So the real issue, I think that, and I guess at that point, we bring it back over. Everything else was great.
Questions for the applicants? Now's the time to ask away.
A couple of things that I want to point out since the sidewalk. I did locate some of the pine trees and some of the fir trees that exist along the northern boundary. So I added those to the plan. They weren't on our property, so I didn't show them originally on the plan. They are slightly over the line, about 5 feet. They are there, again, not on our property, but some existing buffer. I did change the number of bays from 13 to 11. I actually went on a site and kind of Googled service bays, sizes for garages. And when you look at it, like a 30 by 40 bay, or 30 by 40 building, I believe, came out as 2 bays. So by the time you have 2 bays, and you got your workspace, and you got your benches, and you got, their case, obviously they have a bathroom, they have the furnace, they have all associated pieces with the bay. So I kind of interpreted 30 by 40 buildings, 2 bays. The existing building is 40 by 80, so that was 5 bays if you do the math. The proposed building is 50 by 80. Do the math, that was 6 bays. And that seems really more reasonable if you want to have room and equipment and benches for, we'll say, the service station type uses. So I would realistically think that, and I think the applicants probably agree with me, that 13 bays might be been a little bit overstated. Certainly you can fit more cars in there, but in general, if you need a work area and stuff, looking at the online, just kind of having an idea of what a bay size is, even because it's not defined in the ordinance.
Part of the
One man's thought of a bay size versus what the board thinks is the bay size, what is really the bay size. I think realistically it would be 11.
Well, the intent was that the service vehicle's larger than just a standard automobile.
Yeah.
And again, what, did you call that 1 bay if it's a larger vehicle?
So, what's the relevance to the planning board if they have a 50 by 80 building and they've got 2 bays in it, or they figure out they can squeeze 16 bays in it?
Relevant is
outside.
parking and what has to be paid from this.
Yeah, the ordinance said if you use a gas service station or service station, because that's all we had was 3 spaces per bay. So again, I always thought a bay was really, the amount of doors you had would be the bay, but, so the existing building has 3 doors. The proposed building will have eventually 3 doors, but, but where I'm looking at 11 bays is what I downsized this application at 2.
So Paul, that means if that's the case, you'd be required to have 33 bays.
33 spaces.
Parking spaces, I mean. And how many existing spaces?
Right now, I think this is 33 spaces right here. Kind of reconfigured it slightly. I think I added 2 more spaces in order to get 33 spaces right in the vicinity of the building. And then we have other spaces available. You saw there is parking for vehicles that they've called a long-term parking because of titles and stuff and whatnot in order to have to keep them on site. So there is the overflow vehicle parking area, and then also back here is where they actually keep vehicle storage for parts. So I downsized it to 11. His is 33 spaces, and what the applicant would like to propose is to pave or match existing pavement, extend that slightly beyond the building, pave this area, to kind of match existing pavement. The applicant would like to use reclaimed asphalt, where they would pretty much drive their truck and loading and unloading the vehicles. Their opinion is, the pavement gets beat up pretty bad when they're loading and unloading vehicles for their truck. So we'd like to use reclaimed asphalt where the gravel is currently, and pave this area shown in the plan. So that's what the applicant would like to propose.
And just for the record, the feedback from the site walk both today and I think it was the last meeting was that the people who were there felt that the 13 bays was really packing it very tight.
The intended use of the building, I think, and anybody else chime in, the intended use was so that they could bring in the larger vehicles and stuff. They had one in the back of this front bay, which totally almost eliminated being able to use it.
The whole
They had
entire
that
garage.
panned in right by the wall, so and the intended, they have to be able to get around these vehicles. If they put two in, if they had come in and said 2 bays, because they're intending to use these longer ones, they'd be hard pressed to get 2 of the real long ones in there and walk around them and be able to paint them and not bang them up. So I'm comfortable with this proposal.
I am too.
Yes.
I agree, but I do need to point out, just because that's their intention, doesn't mean they might have 6 smaller vehicles in there in any given week. So, so there is an
I agree.
opportunity to fit 6. But, John, I think what you asked with is right, that when we looked at it, it just seemed like there's no way you could fit 7 vehicles in there.
Unless you're really, really good, which I know you are.
Unless you don't want to do any work.
Well,
Working on small.
the only thing is, unless you're using smart cars.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I mean,
All right, were there any other issues besides the number of bays in the parking? I think those were the outstanding issues.
Well,
So
break it
it's
up.
the buffer on both
Yeah.
sides, and there's 2 different issues.
Yeah.
So the one on the southern side,
Regulations calls for it.
agreed, it's a right-of-way. The right-of-way is the same owner as the abutting property. So who are we buffering from? So it's, and we can't require them to put trees on a
Right away.
there's woods there already.
Thing that passed, an abutting property owner to waive that abutment. It was a family relative that
But
that
how
said
could
that.
you even require the buffering there? I don't see.
Can't.
I don't see how you can do it unless you put the buffering on somebody else's property.
Or
Well,
they,
yeah, there is that issue, but I mean,
Right.
to solve the problem, if the abutter was willing to waive it, it would eliminate the problem.
it would help.
You know, what are you gonna do?
Something
Because you're
like
right, if it's the right of way, you can't put the buffer in there, but they're supposed to have buffer.
So
that. Yeah.
describe where that right of way goes.
The right of way starts from Portland Road and ends up pretty much almost to the back of the existing building. The line is right here. I think
So
it was.
it's a right of way for the abutting property to
That's correct.
access, right?
Correct. Access for the abutting properties, they have a right to come in there, construct a road. And the road may be constructed partially on her land and partially on our land. And then eventually, the ownership would go to the center line of the road or something, if I read that correctly in the deed. But she has a right to come in here and use some of this to develop an access for her property. Up to this point.
And that other existing property is non-developed at
I don't know
this
why
time.
she really needed it, because she has a lot of frontage, but.
But there was also that frontage
But it's
is
there.
somewhat wet.
Maybe.
Okay, I mean,
It's all woods.
and it's all woods, so
So obviously she has this part of the deed. We recognize that she has rights to come in here anytime she wants and develop any of this portion any way she wants to develop it.
So we have the right of way and we have also item B, nothing to buffer from.
It doesn't look like over on that side, you're really proposing to do too much.
Up here?
Right.
No, I'm showing the existing tree line, which is pretty much right
Well,
down.
even no improvements or anything along those lines.
No.
No, 'cause, I thought part of it is that, obviously, you know, anything you
Yep.
put in here.
Right, she's got the,
We ain't got much room between the
Yep.
pavement and the property line. There's existing trees there now, she can come in anytime, actually rip that out and build a road in that area, so I just don't see us trying to buffer this would make any sense. Because, you know, obviously she'll come in there, or the next owner, and rip that right out and build a road to access their property.
What about the buffering on the north side? Because you say that buffering exists on a neighboring property.
Yeah, those are existing white pines, they're about 5-inch calipers. There's some firs, I would say about 6 foot high firs right now. And you know, obviously there's some other birch trees in this area, but you know, they don't really give us a great buffer. They're good sized birch trees down through here.
Is the problem that you cannot put buffering on this property? You can't do any plantings there?
On our property?
Yeah.
I think the applicant would be willing to probably do a little combination. Maybe we could put up a stockade fence, but it would be a vinyl type fence. Maybe we could put one, you know, section between the trees, and maybe put another section. Put some sections of vinyl fence in there just to.
But you couldn't put plantings there, is there a
I don't
reason?
think we want to use plantings. I just think they're a maintenance issue. You'd rather use a fence.
A lot of that area,
The natural
you guys
vegetation.
can call, well, not only that, but there's, a
Snow.
lot of snow is plowed up.
Right.
And going
Okay,
over
and-
into the piles to
And also for the
move
board,
that.
Bush fences.
also for the board, at one time, the abutting property was part of the existing property for them. And the owner had put up those trees at that time. So I mean, because at one time or another, it was all one property.
Right, but that doesn't address the buffering issue though. I mean, the buffering issue, or the buffering requirement says that the applicant has to provide buffering. There's nothing there at the moment that needs buffering, but yet, in the future, there may be.
Well, if you,
Well, we refer to
if you look
buffering
at where
or-
the
or
green,
screening.
if you look at where the green trees are on the thing, those are to the neighboring properties and the existing building here, it's kind of screened, but to the back and where this new building is going to be, I mean, if you're
There's
moving
nothing
in
back
that
there.
back portion, you look totally into the back of those other houses. So where you were more concerned about something up here, I think the visual, from my point of view, was back a little bit.
Back in this area.
Yeah, that's where the birches are, and there is no, that is totally all open space back there.
Now, there isn't any residences here at all.
Yeah, no, but it's the view from that building back this way, to the backs of all, I think there were three.
People located along Campground Road, you mean?
No,
No.
right along Route 1.
Route 1's right here,
Yeah, you have a building
the
here,
house right here.
yeah, and you have a,
There's really nothing right here.
there's
Nothing
nothing there, but you can see the back of that house, the next house, and then there was some kind of business or.
Oh, you're going, if you look all the way down, you can turn out and see Rainbow Market.
Yeah,
Right, and that is
I
another,
just said visually,
Right,
so
right.
don't shoot me.
No, I think with the applicants, is okay to add some stockade fence in that area, and we certainly can do that and come up with a plan that hopefully satisfies the applicant and you guys, so we don't have a problem putting some additional buffering, but I think it'll be in the form of a fence.
We don't wanna make it too private, because we've already had one issue where somebody was trying to get tires off. Those neighbors are the ones who actually noticed them, called the cops, and called us. So, in the long stretch, they're helping us out too, on that part.
The neighbors are
Security.
comfortable with what's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, they're
Very.
been excellent with us,
Yeah.
and the landowner also.
So,
Whenever we do something at the property, we bought it off of Todd, we always go and ask Todd, is this okay to put this here, is this all right? We always check with him whatever we're doing, you know, so he knows what we're doing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Maybe it would help the debate if we just read what the ordinance requires. Because I think that's really the issue. The issue isn't whether we can see things, it's not, the issue is you're supposed to put in a landscape buffer, and this is what it says.
In the CCS and HC districts, the landscape area should be 15 feet wide along any street, 25 feet along the side and rear lots abutting a lot with a residential use, and 8 feet wide along the side or rear line abutting or non-residential use. So basically, that's what it says about buffering. Now, as I recall, there was I'm trying to remember exactly where it was a provision for fences in the road.
But landscape, that's pretty easy, right?
You have a green, you do have a green
What standard
vegetation
is that?
buffer
It's
along
gotta be-
there.
It's gotta be on your property though.
There is a green there is green vegetation
But not on their property.
on his property, yes, there is. That is grass.
Yeah,
Along
there's
the,
grass right through here, obviously.
yes.
And this will be, once the guy's ready to off, this will be loamy seed.
Todd, what section of the ordinance is that?
That's section 76C, 3C.
So that might be a simple solution.
It's already existing there. You can't see it because around we have the white rain sitting there.
Then we go to 7(8)B, and it says, except in the DI district, no industrial commercial buildings shall be established above the residential use unless a landscape buffer is provided to visually screen the uses.
BI district?
It says, except
Except.
in the DI district, no industrial commercial buildings or uses shall be established above the residential use unless a landscape buffer strip is provided to visually screen the use. And,
That's the definition.
I think the big issue here is
Screening
screening.
is visual.
Yeah.
It says, in terms of BI district, where no natural vegetation can be maintained or due to varying site conditions, landscaping may consist of fences, walls, tree plantings, hedges, or combinations thereof. The buffering shall be sufficient to minimize the impacts of any kind of potential use such as loading and unloading operations, outdoor storage areas, vehicle parking, mineral extraction, waste collection, and disposal areas. Where a potential safety hazard to small children will exist, visible screening barriers shall be used to deter such entry. So buffer areas should be maintained and vegetation replaced to ensure continuous year-round screening. So, then it says landscaping must consist of a full vegetated ground cover, rock bark, or other non-living material. They only be used to accent landscape areas, and all landscape areas must be maintained in healthy growing facility. And then it says landscape shall be preserved in its natural state, but we don't have that. Landscaping shall be designed to soften, screen, and enhance the physical design of structures and parking areas to avoid the encroachment of the proposed use on abutting land uses. So that's what the applicant has to do. You can accomplish that with a combination of things. Fencing, so.
Or you can put up some more rows of pagosas or something. No, I mean,
Well, that plow.
but like I said, the plow, I mean, you have to be able to stack it somewhere.
So that side is residential? Okay.
So it's either 25.
It is residential and also
15.
commercial.
No, it was,
It is both, sir.
let me just read this again.
Like I said, that is both residential and commercial,
That's what
the existing property next door.
It's got an antique store there.
Yeah.
It's a mixed use.
Oh, it's both.
It's mixed use.
Well, then you can go down to 8 feet. If it's mixed use where it's non-residential property, it says, it doesn't say.
Well, it's
commercial,
residential and
non-residential.
business.
So, if it's mixed use, then I would classify it as non-residential, but I mean, you know, that's the standard they have to meet. You can't impose more on them. That's the basic standard they have to meet.
So accommodations, so fencing and plantings
Fencing and
and grass.
So it's.
Yeah, and obviously this is gonna be all loamy seeded.
That is already,
Yeah, it is already. We actually mow past the trees, we mow
yeah.
down the trees.
You go over onto the abutting to try to maintain.
Okay, so you're
Paul,
gonna.
where, if I'm following along
Yeah.
the edge of gravel line that's on this plan,
Yeah.
it, you know, comes along pretty straight and then it looks like it juts out towards the property line, am I
Correct.
reading that right?
Yep.
Okay, and then it follows it transitions into the edge of a fill line.
Correct.
All right.
So really, the dotted line is kind of edge of gravel, and it kind of transitions to edge of fill.
Yep.
But you say you're gonna loam that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah,
It is loamed
during the
now.
grading plan, this, right here, I wouldn't call that necessarily loamed area, but it will be loamed and seeded within the setback and that to the edge of gravel.
So are you looking to pretty much just project that edge of gravel
Correct.
line straight on
Yep.
to the west?
Yep. Exactly.
That setback is 15 feet on the side, is that what we
That's
have?
what we're looking at right now, correct.
It's 15, so the 8 feet is for the buffer.
If it's for the landscape,
But we can use a
you
fence.
gotta landscaping, in your case, some fencing too, because you're not gonna accomplish an 8 feet of landscape.
No.
That
Right.
would accomplish the goal.
Right. So I mean, I think
You'll
we
have to be looking at fencing for
Right.
a lot of it.
And so I guess what Bob's trying to talk about, you'd like to see fencing coming all the way back to the back of the building? Is that what you're thinking, Bob?
Well,
No.
Because we were thinking about, pretty much just landscaping this area right here, the residence is right here. There's really nothing for
in
a couple
reading,
100 feet away, but
in reading our ordinance and the way that I interpreted it was the new business movement and operation that could be visible, and I can go back, which
yeah,
brought me, and only me, to the back building, the new one that you were putting up,
yeah.
and that corner where you have all of the people that have walked away from them, you're waiting for title, that storage area. To me, there had to be some sort of, and although it wasn't required before, some sort of barrier screening, little bit of fencing, so I would agree that some combination down here,
Along the north line.
just little,
Okay, yeah.
little.
Just so I have an idea
Not
what the
asking
board
the
thinking of.
whole-
Right.
The whole thing be done.
Yeah.
Is that what you were looking at?
That's just, I'm just reading the ordinance.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to interpret the ordinance.
And I'm thinking it would look a lot nicer to not just do a solid fence.
Yeah.
Right, no, we'll think of one combination.
Either that or get some white pines.
So yeah, definitely a combination.
You can dig those up real easy.
Okay, so yeah, so now I have an idea what the board wants for landscaping along the north side, and we'll come back with a plan for that, no problem.
All the proposed improvements are within areas that are already gravel surfaces and everything.
Correct. I mean, for the stormwater management plan, I'm gonna kinda keep it down and dirty, pretty simple. I'm just gonna do a stone line drip edge
Yep.
for the runoff from the building, filter the runoff from the building, send that, discharge that through a stone trench to the wetlands.
Somewhere back, yep.
And I think that's really all I'm gonna have to really do for the site, so when I come back, I'll show that detail for that stone line trench filter system for the drip edge, and, I can certainly do some calculations, it's all impervious, so I can run a hydrant
Yeah, I mean,
tomorrow.
if we're already, that's why I was asking the question, we're already in the limits of existing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping just to show this trench, to tell you the truth, not even have to run calcs, because I'm just gonna show the impervious area, I'm gonna do the pre-calculation, I'm gonna show the building, going to the stone line drip edge, that's gonna have a 2-year runoff, so, it's certainly not gonna increase the stream flow to home and flow, so if I don't have to spend the client's money, I won't. I guess I will. I didn't ask for a waiver for stormwater, but I didn't really think stormwater was a issue with the site, since I was building on existing impervious area.
So I have a question for the town planner, because I'm confused by this. This is a mixed use on the other side, on the northern side. That is all mixed use, correct?
Correct.
So what has me confused about this is that, I guess it is mixed use. I don't understand why he has to buffer it. It's commercial property.
But
And
The way
that's what has me
Not a
confused about
residential
it.
zone.
That's because that's what the ordinance says.
Well, the ordinance says that no industrial, commercial buildings or uses shall be established abutting a residential use,
yeah,
Keep going.
it's, there isn't a.
unless a landscape buffer strip is provided to visually screen the uses. My question is this
But
a
there-
business use or a residential use?
The way I read it is, there is the residential use there.
Okay,
There might be some commercial too, but.
right, this is what I'm trying to get
So this
clarified
says
in my head.
upon neighboring residential uses, which there is.
There's also a commercial, so
But-
Doesn't
both
matter,
interpretations are good.
but because there is residential. So it doesn't say anything about if it's mixed, but it does say. if
Right,
it's
and that's,
what-
that's where I'm getting confused by it, because it's mixed, so, yeah, I don't know.
I have a question. Simple might make it easier. Have be a butter. Alright, because what we ended up have to doing beforehand is the same a butter, which was on the other side of Rainbow Market. It was common for both of them, mutual agreement. It's the same a butter.
Was that between
Rich,
two businesses?
Let me ask you, are you reading 76C3C?
No, I was looking at 7-8B.
Look at 76C3C.
7-6.
That deals with buffering along parking lots in the CCS and BI districts. and the HC.
Yeah, but they were not in the BI district.
No, we're in the CCS
We're in the
district.
CCS.
And prior to that, that was the HC2, which all that was set up in. Prior to that, both places were there when it was HC2 or HC1.
And it's still HC. There's HC in that district still. And this applies also in the HC district as well.
I think you go from 15 feet down to 8 feet.
You can go down to
Yeah.
8 feet.
It does.
I was advocating going down to 8 feet instead of 15 feet.
Right.
because It's a mixed use. Considerably less cost.
So, are you,
Okay. Thank you.
do we need a landscape plan?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you got it. I'm sorry.
Well,
To show where it's gonna be so that somebody can say you did what you said you were
As long
gonna
as it's
do.
shown on the plan, it doesn't have to be a separate
Yeah.
landscape plan, it's gonna be shown on the
We
plan.
do not want, if I may remind the board, we do not want a performance standard like what was done across the street at Bentley's, where you shall screen it. Because you remember what happened with that.
Yeah.
Let's specify a plan, when they meet that, when they put in what they put in, they've met the standard, instead of making it
So
constant.
Open-ended.
So
I know, that's what I'm saying, that protects them, put it on the, put
Oh,
it
yeah,
on
we'll
the.
show a few
we'll show
stretches
the
of fence
fences,
and
we're
a
gonna
couple
show,
of trees.
whatever type of, if they wanna use white pines and consistent or firs, or, I'll talk to the applicant. See what
We're
is-
not looking for
Yeah.
much, just.
And we'll work it out and
Yeah.
come up with something, they'll show the number of trees and the caliper of trees, you know.
Just like we
Yeah.
have in all buildings.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure you can
No,
be
Chad, you have to
creative,
get out there and start
I
planting
don't know,
flowers.
give me the money.
I'll Jen go,
It's really nice. But I don't wanna spend their money, so we'll come up with something that hopefully the board will, you know.
Rose of the Ghost.
Right. I guess, you know, so the only
They
thing
grow
tonight
wild.
is, with the board, is the
Go
board
down and get some beach
comfortable
bums.
using reclaimed asphalt in that area, I guess.
Is it a parking area?
No,
Well,
No.
it's a roadway going around the park.
in the drive-through,
I'm
the
sorry?
aisle, the parking, the driving aisle, I guess,
I don't
right?
know what the, see, I don't have the street design.
Well, it's not a street, this isn't a street design.
Well, it's a roadway, roadway is a street.
No, it's a park, it's a driveway, okay? It's a driveway associated with a parking lot.
Okay,
That's
so,
what I was thinking.
so it can be anything.
It's not, it has no street standards, that, the only thing it has to meet is, it's not getting the street standards. The only thing it has to deal with is the issue of what the surface material has to be, which is 2 inches in bituminous concrete, which is all paving. The only time we allow anything else like gravel or reclaim, is if it's the seasonal parking lot that's operating only from what,
Mid-October?
to October, which I'm sure you guys wanna do business out through the season, right? Yeah.
But they're not proposing any change over in that area other than resurfacing. They're not expanding.
No.
Is that an access strip to the new? I mean,
No.
I gotta.
Is it existing?
That's all
That's all
existing
there.
now.
Yeah.
you're gonna be putting
We're
parking in
not
the back.
parking, we're not doing nothing, it's already there.
So Tad, what is it, this existing pavement ends
Where's the
here?
new parking? Where's the new parking
This is
zone?
shaded parking. right
This
here.
is the new parking.
No shaded.
Yeah, it's already paved there.
No, it's not,
No,
it's not.
Oh.
It's paved to here. This is- the light gray is the existing pavement, the darker gray is the proposed pavement. You probably can't see the hatch line, the hatch is where I'm proposing to put reclaim over the existing gravel drive right now.
Yeah,
So
that's,
it's not
that's
even
an
reclaim
aisle
right
access,
now,
isn't it?
It's
It
an aisle
is.
access.
It's an aisle access.
I'm gonna say it isn't.
Yeah.
How about if it was grass, would it make a difference?
Worse.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'd love you to put in grass screen. I'd love you to
Seeded
put in
drive
grass
over
screen. Much better. But, yeah, you don't wanna take a truck over grass creek anyway. But, yeah, that's what the standard is, guys. See if there's any other provision we can come up with here. I'd like to look at changing that as we go forward.
Yeah, I
Allow
mean,
some,
This
you don't
is
have,
only
you don't allow
well, this
too many
is-
alternatives.
but if that's already,
We already did use
if
to.
that's already gravel,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't,
Reclaim is
we're not
upgraded.
gonna, we're not going through the rest of the site to ask them to upgrade all kinds of other things.
That's where the no parking's gonna be, and that's the aisle, that's the access aisle.
But that's already an access aisle.
It's not the access aisle to the parking, that
Yeah.
is on the other
Yeah,
side,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's kinda like
It is.
double parking, so you know, obviously.
So they're adding parking in the back.
This is
So
where
by
they-
doing
they-
that, you have no access to the vehicle.
Pretty much what you have now, that's right.
I tell you, to move the car up front, if that helps you, every time we have to get the car behind out.
Yeah, pull this car forward and then pull that car forward.
Yeah, that would do it.
And
That's what you need to hear, no problem.
We won't drive over that area, just be loading and unloading, not parking, but.
Looking for some alternative.
Yeah.
I'm having, well, this is what it says, guys, I'm trying to find something else, but this is what it says. All parking areas, driveways, and other areas serving 15 or more vehicles shall be paved with 2 inches of bituminous concrete or equivalent surface over a gravel base of at least 12-inch thickness and shall apply to, shall have appropriate bumper or wheel guards where needed. However, the paving requirement does not apply to seasonal parking lots, seasonal parking areas, we'll talk about that. Limited facilities, is all right.
We don't consider reclaim to be equivalent to bituminous?
No, could you read the first part of that again?
What number
All
is-
parking areas, driveways, and other areas serving 15 or more vehicles.
There's a
Okay,
key- there's a
that's
key-
my question.
Yeah, how many vehicles?
15 or more vehicles, so I'm assuming we're talking about 15 vehicles a day?
Probably 15 total.
15 parking
15
spots.
parking spaces.
15 parking spaces.
How many,
But it says 2 inches of bituminous or equivalent.
Surfacing, so you're gonna tell me that something that's non-bound, like, thing, is equivalent to a bound surfacing, like
That's what we,
bituminous concrete.
that's what we do all the time.
You know, you're talking
We
only
do.
in curved numbers and drainage, not in material.
We just heard it from last applicant.
Yeah,
Well, but what's the difference as far as
and
parking?
if you put it down deep enough and you roll it, turn around, it acts as the same thing.
Where are you reading from, Ted?
I'm reading from, section,
Like Bentley's campground where they put them down, they
76C,
pack it really, really good, it's just like hot tub.
well, how many additional spaces are we adding from parking in the front?
The additional spaces, 9, 4, 5, 6, 12, 14.
Less than 15.
That's less than 15, Tam.
guys, if you wanna split hairs, go ahead.
No, but it's,
the material that you were proposing? The
Reclaim.
Yeah, I,
And we're gonna pave in front of the building, match existing pavement, obviously pave in front of the building, match existing pavement, which pretty much covers the parking area in this aisle. The aisle for the rear parking areas would be reclaimed asphalt.
But you're still running a reclaim through like a paver, same thing, it's just a lot less money.
I guess,
And
Yeah,
a lot
when it's
easier to
rolled and
fix
packed.
when it gets scratched, you know, when you get scratched, we can take the tractor and smooth it down and we're good to go, you know?
I think it's more of a maintenance issue with the pavement, it just doesn't hold up.
So you grade it just like the gravel material,
Right.
so it's not a big. You can give me some specs on that, then it equals to or surpasses the same performance standards concrete, bituminous concrete, I'm all ears.
I think we just have to spray a little Elmer's glue down.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Actually, no, actually, if you turn around, put it down in 2-inch thickness or better, turn around, and when it's rolled, and with the heat on it, it acts as the same thing as,
Pretty
Yeah.
close, but I mean, you know,
If you
it's,
go out to like Bentley's campground where they put it, they roll it and it's packed down real good now, it's just like hot top.
yeah.
That's the season, that's the seasonal
They
part.
put it down on a machine, it does do a pretty good job.
yes.
I know.
Give me the specs that make it equivalent. You show me specs that are equivalent. to it,
Right.
I'll
I don't think I'll be able to come up with that.
Yes, you will. Right. Yes, you will.
Yeah.
no,
I don't think
does
so.
it,
So
does
you-
it
hey,
specify
you
that
need
for
to know
parking
some
and
papers?
access, or-
Right.
And turn around, guess what, then they can turn around and prove it to you.
Yeah, I'd like to find
Yeah,
something.
the driveway.
No.
Well,
Go to Porky,
Driveway goes
okay?
around the back of the.
Go to Pave Tech, okay?
Driveway.
And also
One
Adams.
side.
All right, well, I think I know what the board's leaning towards on that, so,
No, if you can
You know.
give me a spec on that, I'll advocate.
yeah, no, I think I'm all set with that.
Okay.
And hopefully, if the board can get us on complete schedule for public hearing, that would be great.
Do that in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I don't know, what's the next
How
step?
quickly
Mr.
can
Mayor?
you get us those plans, though? I mean,
Just to
Still gotta make some
show the landscape, you
modifications to
mean?
that plan.
Oh, how quickly do you need it?
tomorrow.
I wish I was that good.
I gotta advertise it tomorrow, you give me the plans tomorrow.
You know,
Here, wait a minute, draw it
Probably,
in right now.
Yeah, give me this one.
Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, but, boy, no, it ain't gonna happen tomorrow.
But you need your 10-day notice, so it's, before the public hearing.
Yeah, but we don't have to publish the plans for public hearing.
Well, I'm just saying. He has to have his date time, so we're getting another public hearing in 2 weeks from now, so have it on the same night.
Yeah, like I said, I could have it ready Tuesday, and no, I wouldn't be able to have it ready tomorrow.
Are you in tomorrow even?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to advertise the other one.
Well, you're probably gonna do that tonight.
No, I'm not, I need to get some sleep.
All right, I'll make a motion that we deem these plans, these submissions as complete.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to deem these as complete. My question is, are they?
I do.
I don't think they are.
What submissions are missing?
The site plan, you need the landscaping
Show
of
the pavement, landscaping.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
we're showing landscaping, it's just not
Updated.
updated, but we're showing landscaping.
We've got the question about whether or not reclaim will work.
No, I think we answered that.
Right.
So the answer to that is no?
No.
Unless we
Yes.
find a study saying it does.
Right.
Well, you'd also have to, you gotta be careful with that too, because you'd have to make sure that the base is 12 inches of gravel that was compacted to begin with, and that's gonna cause you to run your pave the damn thing. I'm just telling you.
Certainly, the next submission, if I can prove that reclaimed asphalt, we'll either do that or we're gonna be putting by 2 minutes now. So we'll come up with a solution.
Right,
Well, at any rate, a motion has been made and seconded, so we should probably.
right, and my reason for that is that even though the plans will be altered for public hearing, it doesn't mean that they're not complete. Everything that we require is shown. There are some changes required, but everything is
So the required documents are equal.
right.
Is
So we
everything
would
there?
act on this plan.
No, we're not acting on the plan, we're acting on the completion of the application.
Right. But that means this plan.
Yeah, and I see where he's going at. Because they're not submitting this plan as part of the completed application. It's gonna be bringing us another plan.
Right. Just
Okay.
like
Therefore, the
AIM is
application
gonna
is
give
not
us an updated plan as well, but that was complete. So why is this different?
Yeah. I think the document has been provided, we're asking for some edits. It's still in.
I mean, it's just landscaping. I mean, I'm just gonna.
What's in there?
Well, the
Oh,
landscape,
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I would
Okay.
consider that.
This is green.
Remember who's gonna do it?
Right?
We can
We
tweak
diminish
this.
landscaping.
No, I mean,
We can still say no if it's not done later on.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, if I don't,
Yeah.
We tweak these through the whole
Yeah.
process, as does the planner.
I come back and you know, like,
the
yeah.
construction guys in the field. when
come
they
back
go-
again.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just nice to get the public hearing out of the way in case the neighbors show up and then,
Well, bring them, ask them to come.
right?
I mean, it's, or get a letter from them. Hey,
I mean, we can have the public hearing, and if they're gonna have all the documentation that night, we can do this first, then we can blame, then have the public hearing if you wanna.
Well, if they don't, what you have is you have 45 days in which to decide from that meeting. And you say you got 30 days to get this stuff in, or else we're gonna deny that.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, that's on,
That's it.
that's on them, but they're saying they're gonna be done tomorrow.
You want to move
you get it
I agree,
voted.
it's in your interest. So either way, I'm comfortable either way.
Okay.
Go
Motion,
ahead. You have a motion.
the motion has been made and seconded to deem the application complete. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Thank you, Richard.
Like to
You're
make
welcome.
I'd like to make a motion, we schedule a public hearing, April 9th.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded, schedule a public hearing on April 9th. All those in favor?
Hey,
All those opposed?
Should say that's subject to an availability of the paper to do the job.
Yes.
Right, fine.
To print it,
Yeah.
if it's delayed.
So Tad, do you
If
want me to,
recall, they have
Yeah,
failed
they'll
to be
notify.
on vacation.
Tad, can I submit copies on Tuesday to you? Thank you, guys.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, have a good night.
you're leaving too? I thought we were gonna have company for the rest of the meeting.
This has been a real fun event.
you can stay. I know. All right, no, actually, if you go over there, you can get a more comfortable chair.
Hey guys, thank you.
I'm just glad you took that hat off from me.
See you later.
Say hi, Doll.
Yeah, what's that one?
anyway.
Which hat was that one? Which one is it?
Virginia.
Oh,
University of Virginia Cavaliers.
I mean, vacating some of the.
Virginia Tech.
You're
Got a good crew.
That's why I told him I was glad he took it off.
Okay. Next on the list, a review of the proposed sign performance standards.
Well, let's get this over with.
question to ask, if I may. Wasn't Arundel Market supposed to come and back and visit us about the digital?
They're willing to do that, but when we get into the question of digital in the DB1 is the issue. We're still doing general performance standards. And Rob was willing to come tonight, but he said, is it gonna be about DB1 and DB2? And I said, not tonight. We gotta clear some things up first. So we'll probably be there on the 2nd. Because that's when we're going to have to deal with this. If you're gonna put it in the DB1 and 2, you gotta deal with the DB1 and 2. We can deal with a lot of it tonight, because I put in some standards I did a lot of research, I did as much research as was possible between, since the last meeting, which was last week.
We left off at 5/16/11, number 5, churches and signs.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Mr. Chairman, you'll notice above 5/16/11,
Multiple post signs on a single lot.
yeah, I kicked in two more additions because they're from our current performance standards that weren't in here that I thought we probably would want as a general standard in our performance standards for all signs. And they're from our current one, verbatim, which is that wall signs may be installed only in the signable area of the facade, and that multiple post signs, and I know Bob, this is a concern of his in the past, multiple post signs on a single lot are used, only one post sign is permitted on lots with less than 500 feet of frontage, and there are under 10,000 square feet of lot area. If more than one post sign is on the lot, they must be separated by 200 feet. Remember that discussion, Bob? You were concerned about that?
I thought we moved it to 500 feet.
I thought we had moved it to 500 in
And
a
with an
line of sight,
yeah,
a straight line of sight.
Well, that was for the subdivision
There's
business.
a subdivision sign, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
It
it
was.
was, but it's not in there.
Yes, it is.
Signs
Under
may-
number 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, it is, I missed it. I was expecting to see it underlined, which is why I missed it.
Oh, I probably didn't get to the end, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, we might as well look at 7 and 8. Everybody okay with those?
Wall signs?
With wall signs and multiple post signs on a single lot?
And let me guess what you're gonna ask, what is
Question.
signable area?
I was just gonna ask that.
Because I
What's
thought
that
it was-
mean? Do we have a definition of that?
Yes, we do.
Good.
Well, it's as calculated on one side.
Right.
Signable area of the facade.
That's the front of the building.
No, we don't. Jeez. Well, we put this, well, I'm looking at, this is a current ordinance, and we don't have a term for signable area. We have sign area, we just don't have signable area.
What does sign area? What do we define it as?
The area of a sign that is the space within a parallelogram, which encloses the limits of the advertising message, illustration, insignia, surface, or space of a similar nature. That's not signable area.
But signable area would be the area where signs are permitted on the facade.
Right.
This is where we went through round and round with Aaron. That's how far that goes back.
But I don't see where we, do we
Parallelogram,
need a
maybe limit
definition? I mean,
creativity
put it
of
in,
somebody
but
doing a
it's
sign.
simple enough.
It's basically saying it's gotta be in an area that doesn't have
Yeah, I'm
windows
gonna
or
do it.
architectural details, that's
And
basically.
it
That's
can't be on the
parallelogram.
roof, and it can't be.
Can't be on the roof,
I wanna
can't
try
be
it.
on the, in the basement.
That's a parallel.
There, that's not a parallelogram.
That's
I
not
mean,
a
it may not fit.
Yeah, so there's no definition of signable area. He's defining a signable area as the area exclusive of openings and architectural details. Aaron, that was Aaron's, huh?
You didn't do it.
That's
I
a, that's
know, I
a
did.
sign.
That's what I'm trying to say is-
Or sign area.
That's where signs can be placed.
Yeah, it's basically where it.
Where you can put a
So don't
sign.
put it over a window.
Just put it up on a skyhook.
Yes.
Why do we-
But by signable, I think there's some confusion, or there's the term signable. It isn't the writing on the sign, it's the part of the facade where a sign can be placed. So you take, so you take the right, you exclude all those things, and that's the only places you can put the signs on the building.
Why do we need this here?
I don't.
Because isn't it already, don't we already describe that elsewhere?
No.
So.
We have wall signs, but we don't describe where they can go, if they're on the wall. And we
It's
say
like a wall sign, the fact is, you turn around and place them as banners. Like that.
Well,
You can't
But don't-
transfer something that's existing without looking at it. Okay, wall sign. Just, I quit. Wall
be a good
sign
idea.
is not even defined either. Oh, jeez. I think we have wall sign defined in the new ordinance, but it's not defined in the old ordinance.
To come back to this, we're not gonna finish the
Yeah,
signs.
so this, so that needs work.
Ah,
I think it's pretty clear. Wall signs may only be installed in the signable area. That's where you can put a sign.
But where's the signable area? Where is it?
Wherever on
area-
the building you can put a sign.
Why don't we just say it may only be installed on the facade?
It cannot
Or
be
just
put
on
on
the
the
roof.
roof.
Yeah, I don't know why, yeah, I
On the
agree.
facade of the building.
Let's
Yeah,
take
you're
away
right.
the signable area and just say
Yeah,
wall
have
signs
some
may only be installed in areas of the facade exclusive of openings and architectural details.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't we also have some limitations on second story signs?
yeah, that's in the districts, where
Yeah.
we
that's
have more
district specific, this is general.
Right, but there still would be signable area.
So you want to
For that
definition.
Well,
of
the
signable
trouble is,
area
it's more than
much
8
more.
But
feet high, how
it
can you
wouldn't
see
be
it?
signable area for that district because it's not allowed on the second floor in that district.
Right.
So
then
it's
you
not
can't put-
Signable area.
Right, you can't put a sign there.
Right.
But
Yeah,
that
it's more than
district
8
would
feet high.
specify
That's
that.
what I'm
But the-
saying.
I like getting rid of the term signable area.
Right, yeah, I like the
I
way
agree.
Jamie came up with it.
I really like that.
Why are we doing this?
'Cause just to make it more difficult.
So
Try and
wall
make it
signs may
simple.
only be hung on the walls.
That's pretty much when Jimmy took that out, that's pretty much what that says.
Yeah.
It's not on
And not over
it's on-
windows.
Installed on the sign, on the facade, that's the wall. And the area exclusive of openings and architectural details.
Yeah.
So you got a cornice over your doorway, you can't hang the sign on it, you got a
No,
sign
you
hanging
just
on
have to
the
have the
wall.
exit there.
You know, you
Or
can't
entrance.
hang it on a column, you can't hang it on the cornice, it's gotta be below the cornice.
Oh, that's what I understood even when we read through signable area.
Well, me too, I'm the idiot who said
Yeah, I
there's no
thought it was
definition of signable area. But now we don't have to worry about it, cause we just eliminated
That's
it as a term.
So we took it out.
Just scratch that.
Okay. And
One less term to worry about.
we're all,
Sure.
we're satisfied with the multiple post signs on a single lot. So let's look at the church signs.
Do we bless it now or what?
Churches, public and private schools, or quasi-public uses such as nature centers or museums shall be permitted to display a single 24 square foot post sign plus one 12 square foot wall sign visible from a public way or an adjoining property. All signs shall be externally lighted and shall not be greater height than 8 feet.
Does that mean that their signs must be visible from a public way? They can't put a sign that is not visible from a public way?
No?
No, it says they can put a sign in that's not visible from the public way.
Where?
Shall be permitted to display a single 24-foot sign post plus one 12-square-foot sign post visible from a public way or adjoining property.
Yeah,
If it's
so
all visible.
if it's
What's
not-
the purpose
Because
of a sign if
they
it's not
can put
visible?
it
Right.
there.
Because you're in a school, you have a campus. In a campus, you walk around. You may have areas in which you have no vehicles.
So it's
But
requiring.
you have
them-
signage, administration, stuff like that.
That's inside.
Right.
It's
Right.
inside the complex of the building. Same thing with a church campus.
Right.
Church campus, all the same.
Where do we
thing.
have a
But
church
this-
camp?
But that says that they're
We're
not
going
allowed
to
to
have
put
one.
those signs.
That's
Where?
Yeah.
the church campus, I said. We can have, remember, this
Do
is
we have a
for now, it's
definition
for
for
the
it?
future. It's for the future.
You got a definition for it?
No.
What?
Church camp?
Church campus.
Or a school
Yeah,
campus,
School
or,
campus.
or any
An
campus.
institutional campus.
So my question is, what if they have a sign in the back of the building? It wouldn't be allowed. It's not visible.
It would be allowed. This says that it shall be permitted, not that it must be visible from the road, but that it shall be allowed if it's visible from the road. They're not saying that you have to make it visible from the road.
Do we even need it
Right.
visible from public way?
So,
Right. Why can't we-
We're saying visible from a public way because we're defining it as a 12 square foot sign that would be visible from the public way.
right, but do we have to say public way? Does it make a difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does, because it dictates that you can allow a church to have a sign that is visible from the public way other than the post sign.
So my question is, what if it's on the side of the building that you don't see from the road?
Okay.
They don't allow it?
Yeah, it's allowed.
Doesn't
But it
show
does
that,
it.
yeah.
But it
Take
does.
usual churches where they have the church name, they're usually on a freestanding post, usually with a pediment over it, usually interior lit, not interior, but lit from within the casing, announces the church and the pastor and so forth. Then they might even have a sign right on the church itself.
Right.
That's usually what you see in
And
most
that's the-
churches.
that
No problem
would be
with
the-
that.
Universal Church right down here in Kennebunk, you can't.
Right, no problem with that, but what if it's, this is saying,
You got a little courtyard out the back with a sanctuary or a little
Right.
altar, and you wanna have a sign there, you can't have that sign because it's not visible from the public way.
Okay, well,
That's
that.
not what this says.
it does, shall be
It does
permitted,
not say that.
visible from a public way.
It says it shall be permitted. It doesn't say it must be visible from a public way. There's a difference.
Shall means.
It'll be
No, it doesn't.
permitted if it's visible.
Shall means,
Get your word tech out.
So, the question
Words
is, does
miss it.
this permit any amount of other signage that is not that visible from the public road?
That was the intent.
So you could have more signage provided it's not visible from the public way,
Right. I mean, just think of how.
or adjoining
Or
property.
adjoining property.
Or adjoining properties.
So we need to
Well,
write that
think
more
of the
clearly.
situation where we're encouraging schools. We have all those all those districts where we're gonna say you can have a school, you can have a campus. We're assuming that we might have another Laney school or something like that, maybe multiple buildings. You know they're gonna have signs out there, George and Morrill building, the Patty Swenson building, that kind of stuff. Those signs are gonna be there. If we don't allow for signs like that, you can't
well,
have.
but we agree with, we don't have
Yeah.
a problem with that, it's just the way this is written, it's pretty much saying it has to be visible from the public way.
No, it says or an adjoining property.
Well,
Yeah, but we don't care about the adjoining property either.
what's the adjoining
So,
property?
so I think to alleviate the misinterpretation would be to have an extra sentence that says, additional signs
Yep.
may be allowed, or additional signs that are not visible from a public right-of-way or adjoining properties, would be allowed,
Permitted.
yeah, or permitted.
Up to
Well,
12
well,
square
my
feet.
question
No,
is,
not up to 12.
I thought you have to have a sign on your property. Is this the only one you can turn around and put a sign on somebody else's property for this?
These are not.
Adjoining property.
Visible from the
It's-
adjoining
it's-
property.
Visible from
Except
adjoining
from-
property.
Let's say there's a courtyard around the church, if it's only visible from within that courtyard, who cares how big it is?
Oh, you can't, you have to have it. You have to meet the minimum size.
Right?
I thought there's
We're concerned with what's visible from
The
adjoining
roadways.
properties or public roadways. We don't care like we don't care what's inside of a
That all
church.
becomes site-specific
Right.
too, under their development plan of where
Right.
they're doing all of that.
So I think that extra sentence would do it.
Yeah, I think I agree. That's
Okay.
well put. And, think of it also this way, guys, let's think, we get a nature center. So we have a
Yeah.
nature
Yeah,
center.
right.
And they have trails out there, and they have signs on along the trail. We're gonna regulate those signs on the trail that you can't see.
Sure, why not? You do the Eastern Trail.
No, you don't regulate the Eastern Trail either. The Eastern Trail's got signs all over it, but those are directional signs, so they're exempt.
Yeah, directional
But
movement,
if we had
informational
informational
signs,
signs,
should
if we
be
said,
allowed
okay,
anyway.
here's, down by the river, here's where Blanding's turtle is, this is scarlet tanagers we're seeing here, we have pictures of that and so forth, that's signage.
Yeah, and kiosks along
Kiosks
the
and so
way.
forth,
and-
things like that, I mean, these are things we have to think of, when they come to do it, or come to get a permit from Jim, we wanna have some sort of flexibility, so this would apply to schools.
What was that sentence again?
Additional signs not
Yeah.
visible from public ways or adjoining properties shall be permitted.
Not visible from public way or adjoining.
I have one quick question,
With
all
no-
about your
no, hold
signs.
on, let me, with,
Okay.
with no limits at all?
It's
How
our
are you gonna
property
set a
and we
limit?
can't see
How are you
it.
gonna set a limit?
Can't see it, how you gonna
Right.
regulate it?
Well,
Why do you
On what basis
Why do
would
you-
you have?
what do you
to
want?
I don't wanna regulate
What do you
any of
want?
this, but.
You want everybody.
Well, and remember, Rick, this is solely limited to churches, public and private schools, or quasi-public uses, such as a nature center or museum.
So
It's not like
they
you're
did have
you're
no reason
looking
to put
for.
a big billboard.
Yeah,
Right.
And
I'm all
very
right with
honestly,
that.
what happens with
on, what is it, North Chapel.
Right.
You know, what happens when they make that into an actual facility? They're gonna have signs in the buildings, and they're gonna
So
have
we won't
directional
allow that.
things, and you're gonna regulate that?
Yeah.
They're gonna
No.
have signs in the seasonal cottages to
Right.
show where the,
Exactly.
where the
Different
office is
Yeah.
and where the rec area is and where
So
the
it's their
Eastern
property.
Trail is.
You are
And
lost.
as long as you
know?
can't
If
see
you
it
can't
from,
see it from the road, why?
that's right, as long as you can't see them from Route 1, okay.
Because I mean, the whole issue of signage, you know, when signage was
Okay.
ever created, it came out in nineteen sixty NEPA, you know, in 1972 in NERPA. NEPA. It's basically a sign pollution issue, that's where all this stuff came from.
Marty?
I have one question between all the signage and everything else, okay? What size does Seasonal Cottage plan to put up? Because turn out, if this is a multi-million-dollar project, okay? What size, does he have to apply for a sign if it was gonna be bigger than what is required now to be put up there?
We don't have any signage standards for seasonal cottages.
Not yet.
We don't have any signage standards.
Well, it's a business, ain't it?
Okay, but we have no regulation in that district at this point.
Well, all we have is what was visible from the street at this particular time, internally, you know?
I didn't say internally, I'm
But that,
saying,
we are talking internally.
Yeah, but the streets, they'll have to meet the districts.
Yeah,
Right.
the sign ordinance that we have now.
And which brings up the question, when you have, and that's really, and that's not just a subdivision, that's a PUD, for all intents and purposes. We call it seasonal cottage, but it's a PUD. You know, this is the problem.
let's speak English, what's the PUD?
Planned unit development.
We've gone over 4 of them we've proposed, reviewed. The issue is that's the problem we're gonna have, and when we get to congregate care or any of these other kind of facilities like that, or multi-unit, multi-building, multi-use facets, we're gonna have this issue of signage. Internal signage that's not visible from the public, that's germane only to that particular facility, and you're gonna always have this. If we had a country club here, we'd have the same problem, signage on the golf course, signage, you know, at the street, signage on the buildings, you know, all this stuff. This is, we have to have some sort of way of getting around that problem, so Jim doesn't have to sit there and say you can't label the Ts, because you've exceeded your signage out of the street, so you can't label the Ts.
But that fix would apply to every area, right?
That applies to every area with
Yeah.
those kinds of uses.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, your time.
Yeah, it is nice.
Holy cow.
We spent all of our meeting going over other stuff.
It's our job.
Yep.
Well, we do need to,
Okay.
I do think
We need to take a look at item number 3, which is the one that we added on the
Digital graphics.
vacating
Vacating subdivisions.
subdivisions.
Three on that.
What do we need to do on that?
That's the question. You see, the thing is, the guy wants to voluntarily vacate a subdivision. I don't think we have to do anything.
Doesn't he just, don't,
We have to sign, we have to release
your
it.
office just have them submit and file with you the new submission to the registry of deeds that is now just one property.
Yeah.
You get the new ones, that then says everything before it's gone.
It has to be
That's pretty much
signed, it
what I
has to be
told these
signed and
guys.
notarized.
I'm just notifying you guys that I think that's the procedure. What you've got is you've got a situation which allows this board to intervene in situations where you have an approved subdivision and they have not met the standards of their approval, which is to complete, substantial completion within 2 years.
Yep.
And they're giving you a grief goodbye and you said, fine, terrific. Guess what? You don't have a subdivision, we're notifying the registry of deeds that this is no longer a subdivision. Because they have not started, they have not done anything they were supposed to do. And we have subdivisions where you could do that. But the issue here is really, I wanted to notify you folks that my attitude about it is that these guys just file a new plan in Alfred that say, this is all one parcel. We've recombined it into one parcel and we don't need to do anything.
Yeah, right.
So,
Is,
Much.
Has it already expired?
Yes.
10 years
I don't know
ago.
which, okay, so, so
We
it's
shouldn't have to
void
do anything.
anyways.
It was void anyways, but for us, I mean, we would have to, the procedures that are specified in the subdivision ordinance for vacating a subdivision are such that the board has to go through these gyrations. We did it with Jimmy Jones, remember, because Jimmy asked us to do it. And it was, you know, at the end of it, we said, this is kind of ridiculous, because this is a hostile act. This is not the planning board saying, you've lost your right to have a subdivision, and the applicant saying, no, I do have a right to have that subdivision, forever, without building it. And, this is a situation where the owners want to surrender that right to subdivide, and quite frankly, as I told you, they're gonna basically do family division, and five at it, 2 at a time.
I moved it over to your spot.
You're gonna do minor subdivision.
One point, then I'll turn it over to the planner, because I'm sure he's gonna mention it anyway. Next Thursday night at 6 PM at the school, we are going to have an executive session with the town attorney
6 o'clock.
at 6 o'clock. And now I'll turn it over to the town.
So that's the
Just
same
so-
night as the, as a DOT public hearing
Yep,
for the
Yeah.
111, New Road improvements.
Really, where are they gonna meet? We're gonna
In
be
the
in,
gym.
we're in the gym.
oh, they can be in the gym, we're gonna be in the library.
Expect more of that.
Question, do we need the library, can't we go in one of the smaller rooms? Instead of turning
A little more private.
yeah,
For the very beginning, we probably could.
I'm just saying.
I don't know.
I mean,
All I know is that
where,
we-
usually where the,
What night is it? Next
where
Thursday
you
night,
guys,
April 2nd.
Historical Society?
yeah,
Yeah.
where they meet around the big table. I mean, that's,
Surprisingly enough, we threw the Board of Selectmen out so that we could have the meeting, and the Board of Selectmen have their executive sessions in the library.
Yeah. We've had executive sessions there before on a number of issues. that
We got the
you guys-
library, even though
We
it's
have
not
the library next week.
even though it's not the
But
second.
we're gonna start our regular business at 7?
That's, yes, the regular business at 7.
And just so the board knows, on advice of the attorney, I have been asked to recuse myself from that meeting because I'm in a butter to Du Bois, even though I don't personally think that there's reason for me not to attend that meeting. She has advised that I do not attend for that reason. But there's gonna be no votes taken there, so there's no executive action taken at that meeting, and that's why you recuse yourself, so it doesn't make sense to me. However, I'll follow that advice. But I think the Du Bois have included me, because they sent me a copy of that letter that went around, so they have themselves included me in this group, but whatever. But that's why I won't be there.
Okay.
that's when now?
Next Thursday,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock at the library.
Coffee and donuts being provided?
So,
As long as you bring,
as far as privacy, what happens if someone comes in
the doors will be locked.
50?
The doors
Stop
will be
talking.
locked.
I know beforehand, that's why I said this, the selectmen, when they always used to go into executive session when their meeting was in the library, they went into another whole room.
They used to, yeah.
Well, to tell you the truth, guys, we commandeered the library, the comp plan committee did not schedule. For whatever reasons, we had not scheduled a meeting room to the satisfaction of RSU 21, and they reacted with displeasure. So we're gonna stick to where we're allowed to go. I had to schedule this room back in January in order to get it. It's been booked up solid. We will not be having any opportunities to use the library in this spring and fall because of the amount of bookings on it. So we'll grab it and stick with it as long as we can. We can keep it secure, as secure as possible. If we have to go into one of the rooms and they're not available, we'll just deal with the RSU later.
We'll get John to come and stand at the door.
So my thought is where there's gonna be a public hearing held in the gym. I mean, we're gonna have a lot of people
Fancy.
show up that we're gonna have to say, sorry, this is an executive session.
Well, no, we're gonna have the doors locked.
Right.
We're gonna have the doors locked and we're gonna just say private meeting and we just, that's all there is to it.
Can I interrupt you? Last time saying that we're not having board meetings in the library anymore?
No, we're having our board meetings, but we're not having our special meetings there because we're gonna
Okay.
continue to be meeting in this room or upstairs in the CEO office because there's just no room in the inn. Which is, you know, we have a critical meeting space, the selectmen are selecting a new town manager and there's 101 different other activities that are going on at this particular time involving a lot of different committees, both town and extra town, so space is at a premium.
Yeah. We need North Chapel Commons.
We also, they use the town hall too, so we don't have to go and beg for space for municipal affairs.
So what else you have for us, Mr. Planner?
Nothing else. Oh, I have an application coming in, a conditional use application for dam demolition.
For what?
Dam demolition.
Dam?
Damn.
Beaver Dam?
No, they wanna take down the
Historic,
dam.
historic dam,
One.
Goff's Mills.
What, no?
Oh,
Rough smell.
Whereabouts is the dam?
River Road.
where?
Goff's Mills Brook on River Road.
That's what I'm asking. I live off River Road and
It's upstream.
Upstream of it?
You didn't even know there was a dam there, did you?
The
No.
original Goff's Mill Dam, the mill dam is there. So, Trout Unlimited and Wells Reserve are making the application. They have a grant for demolition of the dam.
Who owns the dam?
I believe Mary Kasner. This is my speculation on an application. We're just talking to them on the phone. Okay.
Anything else we need to deal with?
yeah. No, they started on Enterprise Drive today, setting footings.
They're doing quite a lot of work on cottages too.
You're the one, yeah.
Yeah.
They've pre-sold 15, 16 units right
Wow. Good for them.
now. And probably gonna have 20 pre-sold before the end of
If there's nothing else?
Wow.
somebody
Motion
can-
to adjourn.
No, second.
Motion's been made and seconded, all those in favor?